Hello everybody. On this week's edition of Will It Blend, I have an Emerson Heat-Fan, also known by fan collectors as the Blenderfan, among other names, the Universal Series. Um, yeah, so these were from my trip to Ohio that I took. And I actually have two more of them. There are three of them that I have. There were originally four, but the fourth one went to another collector, Colin, who he has videos on YouTube, and he actually has a video of his, so I'll link that video in the description. But anyways, this one is the best of the bunch, I think. This one, the blade arms are in perfect balance. The motor isn't too scratched up or anything. But yeah, these were from, like I said, they're from my trip to Ohio. I got them from my friend who volunteers, or he doesn't volunteer, he works at the Restore. And I actually do know where these came from. Uh, the four Heat-Fans came from there was a barn in Delaware, Ohio, which it was called the barn at Stratford, and there were four of them installed. And my friend actually went there years ago, and he took a picture of them for me. And I was like, oh my god, those are K63 Blenderfans. Those are really cool. If they ever replace those, you should like get in touch with them and ask if you can keep them or something like that, because I'd love to have those. And well, I'd kind of forgotten about them, and then he mentioned years later that they were remodeling it, or remodeling the barn, or doing something like that. And much to both of our surprise, he came in one day, and in the scrap pile, there they were, just sitting in like trash cans. So he took the blades off and he took them home, and they were sitting in his basement ever since. And now I got three of them. So yeah, I'm very happy to finally have these. And these are actually my very first K63 fans, because like I mentioned, these are K63. Now, they are a little bit odd. They are from around, I think, 1980. So they're a little bit later on the K63 end. But, and that's because you can see the flywheel there is the sort of stepped model that they used on the K55s. It's got like the flat end, the flat portion on the perimeter where the blade screws mount. Normal K63 flywheels would be a little bit thicker, and they would be tapered. Um, and that's what a Rick blender is, with the tapered flywheel. This one's not a Rick blender, unfortunately. This one's also not my childhood version. My childhood version is K63 like this, with also with fiberglass blades like this one has, but it has four blades and the nose. And that's the 36-inch model and 52-inch model. Of those are both childhood, because there's the one in that garden center that I took a short video of earlier this year, and then there's two in the Goodwill that I took a video of years ago. So yeah, and those were the four blade K63 fiberglass blades. These are 3-blade fiberglass blades K63. The earliest Blenderfans used like a weird prototype motor. They were like they often were rebranded by Sears, and they had like the trans shaft with a pull chain in the middle. I know there's many collectors that have those, and those are pretty cool. And then they went to the K63 models, and then they switched to the K55 models after that. And the blades were originally like a cardboard material. It wasn't quite cardboard, I don't think. It was like a fibrous type thing. Not quite fiberglass either, but these blades are fiberglass. And you can tell because they have that sort of horseshoe sort of cutout shape on the end there. It's pretty cool. And then of course they afterwards switched to the plastic blades, which were like fake wood grain. I don't have any of those right here right now, but whoops, knocking stuff over as usual. Anyway, yeah, you can see the Emerson logo there on the side of the motor. Now the canopy is not original. These never had canopies when they were installed. Um, So obviously I didn't get them with canopies. Even back when they were like originally installed, I guess they never put the canopies on them. This canopy you see is from my brown Sears turn of the century, the Emerson one with the ornate brass sideband. It's not quite the same color. They did use a sort of more metallic light brown on the older K63 models and a sort of darker brown on the later models. So that's just something pretty interesting. It also kind of stands out a bit, but nonetheless, it still looks pretty good. These are model HF-136, by the way, HF-136. And yeah, I do have it hooked up to my variable speed solid state control, the one I got with that white Evergo spinner. So I'm going to have it set on low, and I have the low speed trim adjusted. So I'm going to hope that it starts up and doesn't stall. So here we go. Yep. I couldn't get it to go much slower than this. Every time I tried to turn the low speed trim down anymore, it would stall out on low when you turned it on. So the K63, it works well on the solid state. There is a little bit of hum, but it's really not that bad. And I forgot to mention that the reason why these are called Blenderfans is because somebody, a certain collector, I think it was Rick actually, noticed that it might have been it was either Rick or Dan, noticed that the motor and the flywheel looked like a blender, like a old kitchen blender or something like that. So the name just kind of stuck back in the early days of the fan forums. So, but of course the official name was the Heat-Fan because these were originally used on factory ceilings to reclaim heat in the wintertime that had risen up to the ceiling. So they were used all year round basically for summer and winter. And they were marketed as being much more efficient than like, the Hunter original cast iron oil bath motor type. So I'm going to turn the solid state up just a little bit. Okay. A little more. A little more. It's wobbling just a slight bit, but it's really not bad at all. A little more. This is a good medium speed. There's really not much of a hum at all. It's like very faint. Turn it up a little more. I mean, you have to remember that early K63 Casablancas used basically the same setup. The K63 on a cardboard box solid state. So that's a pretty good medium high. think we're almost at high. And surprisingly, the bearings on this one, actually on all three of them, are really good. K63s oftentimes had bearing troubles because they got a lot hotter in operation, and that oftentimes cooked the bearings. But I'm guessing these weren't run very often when they were installed. However, I did find a picture of one online from like the Google Photos of the place where they were running. So they use them occasionally, I guess. So that's almost high speed. That's just under. Let's see. Turn it up a little more. And now we are at high. So, and this being my first exposure to a K63 motor in my entire life, actually, I don't think I've ever been, well, no, that's not true, because I saw the Blenderfans at the garden center in the Goodwill, but this is my first test of a K63 in person, so I will say the airflow is definitely a lot for a 36-inch fan. So this is definitely a lot powerful than, say, like a spinner, like the Caraway spinner behind me or something like that. Obviously, this is an industrial fan. It's more powerful, I think, than those Golden Fan cast iron industrials that I have. It's definitely quite the performer. I already have an idea of where I'm going to put this one. Alright, now I'm going to do a spin down, since we're already at high. See how good those bearings are. I just completely forgot. I thought of another place where I've seen, not this version, but the 4-blade K63 4-blade fiberglass version was at the York Fairgrounds. There's like one building that has 52-inch ones in like the main area, and then in the bathrooms there's a 36-inch ones. So I don't know, the 4-blade K63 fiberglass blade one seemed to be the most common, at least around here. Although there was another church that I went to a long time ago that had white, oh, it stopped finally. But yeah, there was a church that I went to that had white K55 ones, I believe, that were 3-blade, so I have seen those before. But I've never seen this version before, obviously. Alright, now I'm going to do a 0 to high startup, so you can see how fast it starts up from off to high. Here we go. That torque of the K63. Obviously, it's not reversible. Alright. Yeah, I am absolutely impressed by the performance of this fan. So, turn it off. And now, this is the first fan of the 3. I'll give you an up-close view of this one. So we got your flywheel with the little chrome button in the middle. It does not say Emerson Electric or anything. This one's chrome button is in much better shape than the others. It's actually still shiny. Doesn't have any scratches or rust or anything. The blades, which are fiberglass, you can see the fibers in there. It's kind of shiny. And then on top, the blades have this like triangle design. It's really cool. And the thick part that the arms mount to, it's really neat. Once again, the flywheel is the stepped kind, which is the exact same that are on the K55 Emersons, like the kitchen fan and the turn of the century. So, yeah, that's the one that they use for the K55 fan. So this is a little bit later on in the K63 era. But there's the Emerson tag as always. The lower canopy, which is actually the same as the upper canopy, it's just the canopy like mounted on top of the motor. And then the vents on the end bell of the K63, and they're a lot wider than on the K55, obviously, because this motor is really a lot wider in diameter. And then, what else on top? Labels right there. Emerson Electric catalog number HF-136, HF-136, and then voltage and electrical specs and everything. The down rod, this one has a double claw J-hook mount, and then of course the canopy, I just like wired it up to the J-hook there. So yeah, that is pretty much everything there is about this fan. I have, like I said, 2 more, so expect 2 more videos of those. So this is going to be like a 3-part series. So that is part 1 of the Emerson at 36-inch Emerson Heat-Fan, aka Blenderfan, the first fan of the 3. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.